Okay, I'm gonna do a dramatic reading of Alcoholics Anonymous from page 1 is for Bill's story, and I'll just have it go on for a little bit. War fever ran high in the New England town to which we knew young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned, and we were flattered when the first citizens took us to their homes, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause, war, moments sublime with intervals hilarious. I was part of life at last, and in the midst of excitement I discovered liquor. I forgot the strong warnings and prejudices of my people concerning drink. In time we sailed for over there. I was very lonely again, turned to alcohol. We landed in England. I visited Winchester Cathedral. Much moved, I wandered outside. My attention was caught by a doggerel on an old tombstone. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier, who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is never forget, whether he died by musket or by pot. Ominous warning which I failed to heed. 22 and a veteran of foreign wars, I went home at last. I fancied myself a leader, for had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation? My talent for leadership, I imagined, would place me at the head of vast enterprise which I would manage with the utmost assurance. I took a night law course and obtained employment as investigator for Surety Company. The drive for success was on. I proved to the world I was improving. My work took me about Wall Street, and little by little I became interested in the market. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not? I studied economics and business as well as law. Potential alcoholics that I was, I nearly failed my law course. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my wife. We had long talks when I would her forebodings by telling her that men of genius conceived their best projects while drunk, that the most majestic constructions of philosophic thought were so derived. By the time I had completed the course, I knew the law was not for me. The inviting maelstroms of Wall Street had me in the grip. Business and financial leaders were my hero. Out of the alloy to drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that one day would turn into the flight like a boomerang and all but cut to ribbons. Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000 and went into certain securities, then cheap and rather unpopular. I slightly imagined that they would someday have a great rise. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and management, but my wife and I decided to go anyway. I have devoted a theory that most people lost money in stocks through ignorance of markets. I discovered many more reasons later on. We gave up our positions and off we roared on a motorcycle, the sidecar stuffed with tent blankets and change of clothes, and 3 huge volumes of financial uh, reference service. Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed. Perhaps they were right. It had some success speculation, so we had a little money. But we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our small capital. That was the last honest manual labor of my part for many a day. We covered the whole eastern United States in a year. At the end of it, my reports to Wall Street procured me a position there in use of large expense account. This exercise of option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of 7,000. I'll just cut through this a little bit to get to the point where his life doesn't go too great. Abruptly, in 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days, an inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a broker's office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed. The ticker just clattered. I was staring at an inch of tape which bore the inscription XYZ32. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were many friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from the towers of high finance. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. My friends had dropped 7 million since 10 o'clock, so what? Tomorrow was another day. As I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left, and I thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning to Elba. No St. Helen for me, but drinking caught up with me, and the generous one had to let me go. The time we stayed broke. We went to live with my wife's parents. I found a job, then lost it as a result of a brawl with a taxi driver. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years, or hardly drew a sober breath. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at a brokerage places. Liquor ceased to be a luxury, it became a necessity. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day and often 3 got to be my routine. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I would pay my bills at the bars a diligent. They went on endlessly, and I began to weaken very early in the morning, shaking violently. A tumbler full of gin followed by half a dozen bottles of beer would be required if I were to eat any breakfast. Nevertheless, okay. Nevertheless, oh god, where was I at? Yeah, we'll just skip a page. Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at a low point of 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and that chance vanished. Shortly afterwards, I came home drunk. There had been no fight. Where had I been high resolve? Was I crazy? I began to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Renewing my resolve to try it again. Some passed, and confidence began to replace my cockiness. I would laugh at the gym meals. Now I had what it takes. One day I walked into the cafe to telephone. In no time I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, but it might as well get drunk and drunk again, as I did. The remorse, the horror, the hopelessness of the next morning are forgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. I hardly dared cross the street, lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck, for it was scarcely daylight. All night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My withering nerves were stilled at last. A morning paper told me the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was hard, though. Should I kill myself? No, not now. The mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that, so 2 bottles and oblivion. Alright, that was up to page 6.